Hey everyone, so today's the day. It's early on a Friday morning, just towards the end of May, and today's the day after many months of procrastinating. I'm off to go and pick up the Cobra from Gardner Douglas. I say the Cobra, it's just the body and the chassis and the first few bits to get the build started, but mix of excitement and mix of apprehension. First time I would have been driving a car transporter, bringing back something as valuable as this, but should be interesting. I've got my mate John who's here, he's going to help, and a few minutes we'll be heading off in this little guy, strapping the body down with Andy's help and the rest of the crew. So let's get underway. So here she is, at least how she looks at the moment, straight from the factory. This is a Gardner Douglas 427 Mark IV. This is one of their bodies straight out of the mould and just temporarily lowered onto one of their rolling chassis. So let's just have a quick look around it. Obviously sitting on some Space Saver build wheels at the moment. They really won't look like that when I'm finished. They'll be going back to Andy. Space for the fuel filler there, boot, and you can obviously see the hard top on top with a temporary windscreen. Let's get it loaded up onto the car transporter. Winch proved quite helpful here. Not having driven a car transporter before and not wanting my new prized possession and all of its various bits and pieces to end up falling off on the A1 and the M25 somewhere, we were super cautious in strapping it down to the trailer bed and in wrapping it with a tarpaulin and various elements of rope and straps and so on. Andy and his team were absolutely great here, spending loads of time helping us load up the various boxes of parts into the car, stacking everything in there nice and securely, and then helping us secure it on the back of the bed. Then it was time to set off again and make our way back home. Once back at home, we then had the slightly daunting task of unloading the body up that steep driveway I talked about. We did at one point move the trailer right up to close to the garage, decided against it, moved it back down the driveway, and just all three of us gave it a good push to get it up into the garage. Let's take a look around what we've got so far. So as you may have seen in the previous video, I built a wooden dolly here that can support the body with the chassis tucked underneath it, so I need to work on that some more, and the body on top where it's hopefully not too high so I can get to all of the areas I need to work on over the coming months. First things first, you may notice there's no headlights, and I mean this is how the body comes straight out of the mould. You can opt to have all the holes cut and have those done by the factory, or you can do it yourself. And I'm trying to keep the budget under control here, so I'll be doing all of that myself. If you look up closely here, you can see this is some of the yellow release agent, the wax that they use in the mould. That will come off easily enough. And these here, if you can see that particularly well, you've got these flash lines. I'll try and get in there a little bit closer. These flash lines that join the two halves of the mould together. They're effectively little ridges that run all the way around the car. All of those will need to be sanded off and rubbed down. That'll be a job for the wet and dry sandpaper. Very much a temporary windscreen piece here, because I opted for the hard top as well. And ordinarily, just so everyone knows, when you take the body, you would actually take the body typically in a transit van, in a long wheelbase transit van or in a Luton tail lift, something like that. But as I opted to take a pre-built chassis as well, which Andy and the team had in the factory that was unused from a previous build, actually offered a slight discount to me, which I thought was great. I opted to take that, but that meant I'm effectively transporting a full car with the hard top, which is then impossible just to put in a loop and tail lift. So that meant they needed to add this temporary windscreen support here so that the hard top could sit flush on the top of the car and then obviously not act as a parachute on the back of the car transporter, which you'll see in the previous video. So tucked in here at the moment is just some of the other bits and pieces. This actually is the panel that supports the headlining that goes in the top here. Obviously that's just raw fiberglass at the moment, but the headlining will wrap around this and this all gets stuck to the roof as we go forward. A few other bits and pieces in here that will actually connect to the back quarter panel of the hardtop there. Hardtop literally just resting here at the moment on a bit of foam sitting on the body. Let's see if I can get around the back here. Space is quite tight, even in this garage here where I've got about 5 meters of space. But boot panel here just duct taped on at the moment, just whilst it's sitting here. I've got to cut all the holes for that, and obviously the catches here in the back and all the rest of that. Cutting holes for the rear lights and probably the reverse light and fog light down here as well. Let's just go down the bottom here and just show you the back of the chassis here for a second. This is all covered in protective sheeting because one of the first jobs I'll be doing is undersealing the wheel arches with liquid rubber. One of the things you want to do is just make sure that the underside of the fiberglass is well protected from stone chips that fly up. So that's the back of the chassis there. Some of you might notice the rather fetching wheels we've got on here at the moment. Trust me, they won't be looking like that. These are just build wheels. I'll get those back to Andy and the team as soon as I can. And let's just have a look in the engine bay so you can see what's in there. And no great surprise, there's absolutely nothing at the moment. That'll come later. The engine bay will obviously need all of the holes for the steering column, for the heater matrix, all those sorts of things to be sorted out. And actually, if I can get a little bit closer here, you can see another one of the first jobs here is, if you look along just the top edges there, you can see again where some of the pieces join up, and that will need to be filled, rubbed back, and then coated with some of the gel coat just to fill those edges and give it a more showroom-like finish. Finally, the colour is a RAL light blue. My original intention was to do this perhaps with a pair of yellow Shelby stripes up the middle, but I've taken just a raw blue chassis at the moment, sorry, raw blue body at the moment, and I'll make a decision about whether I want to keep this colour and effectively just really sand it back nice and smooth and then get it sort of gleaming and shiny enough to keep, or whether or not I'll actually go for a finish where I'll have it all primed and then properly painted. So there we are, that's what we have at the moment. Let's just come down one further and take a look at the chassis sitting underneath the dolly here for a moment. So this is obviously all empty at the moment. This is the front suspension arms. This is actually the Euro chassis, not the Euro ADV. I think this is one of the last Euro chassis they had, which is basically the suspension design there is slightly different. Andy and team decided to change that a few years ago. So where we are now is this is the last of the Euro chassis, which I understand Andy still uses for his car. But as I said, it was a bit of a bargain for me to take this. So whilst I would have liked to have built the whole chassis myself, this offer was a bit too good to be true. Let's just come around the side here and you can see one final piece here. This is the part that really sold it for me. This is the Gardner Douglas Mark IV chassis. Unlike many other Cobra replicas where they have a ladder chassis, very traditional sort of 1960s design, or possibly even earlier ladder chassis where, if I can get my hands under here, there's usually a very flat plate here that the body skin sits on and kind of curves over and then literally just sits on top of. The way the Gardner Douglas guys have designed this, and Andy's worked on this, is that the chassis is effectively a backbone design. So you can see all the triangulation in the chassis there. It's all super strong, really rigid, and then the rest of the strength actually comes in the body itself. So instead of having just a skin, actually you can go in and you can see this is a really solid floor, and you can read more about that on the Gardner Douglas website. So there we go. That's just a very quick walk around of the body and chassis as we are. The next thing will be to get cracking on cutting holes and starting the cleanup.